I'm not gonna make any kind of statement or nothing. That's not necessarily my style. But happy to be here. Happy to see you guys. I see you all the time, so now maybe I get to know some of you as we go. But if you have any questions,
What's the biggest difference for you now, like in your day-to-day and responsibilities with all the shifting and coaching changes?
there's not a huge difference over the last 3 weeks. It's been bigger before Thomas took over as the offensive coordinator. When he took over, I kind of started doing a lot more hands-on stuff with him and working hand in hand with him. So that part became a little bit more of my everyday than just the normal coaching the receivers group and doing one part of the game plan for Shane. But as far as this week, it hasn't really been too much different.
Chris, can you explain for us just a little bit of how this is going to work, the logistics where Thomas is the interim coach, but still the offensive play caller. You're the offensive coordinator. So what responsibilities are yours versus his?
Yeah, we've worked together the last 3 weeks. I've done a lot of the pass game, and and then I give him some, things that I see. Give him a ton of suggestions during the middle of the game, as far as, hey, think about this on the next play. Think about this as the next third down. Think about this as the next situation when we get the ball back. These are some of the things to think about. So try to be a play ahead for him, so he can have eyes on the future while he's thinking about right now, because that's part of the play calling process for most. So I've been trying to help him with that the whole time that he took over. So that part won't really change. I'll probably have a little bit more to say with the time management part of it. Obviously, we had some issues with that, so we're going to try to streamline that a little bit to make that a little less hectic, maybe on the headset, and more of a couple heads getting together before everything happens as opposed to as it happens. So those things we're trying to work through and fit those things in.
Will you be upstairs or downstairs?
Right now, I think I'll be on the field still. I mean, that's subject to change, and really whatever's the best for him. To make it easier for him and for me to be in a position to advise him in the best way possible.
With him being, I guess, with you guys both then being on the field, is someone kind of taking that key role upstairs to kind of be his eyes, both of your guys' eyes from upstairs?
Yeah, so if that were the case, depending on how it ends up working out, if we both stay on the field, Haas is great, as far as being able to help us out with the fronts and the personnel and those things. And then Robbie's done a great job all year being able to say, hey, these are the coverages and these are the things that we're seeing on down-to-down situation and being able to relay the information. He's been doing that for me the whole time, so I don't think that'll change. It'll just be Thomas is paying more attention as opposed to being up there to see it himself.
Coach from the outside. What have you noticed about this group and how they've kind of navigated, obviously a long losing streak, but then so much change in between games?
They're a tough, close knit group. You're talking about the team, right? These guys, they're pros, and when you lose 4 games on the last play, that's hard, no matter what it is. But at the same time, they come to practice. They want to work. They want to get better. They want to be coached, which that's why we all appreciate them as coaches, because the players want to get better. They want to do whatever it takes, and that's why we feel like we owe it to them. And we want to be accountable to them to be able to get this thing right, and put them in the best situation possible.
Coach, from the outside looking in, it seems like there's been several times this season, whether it's end of game situation, challenge situations, timeout situations, where the communication seemingly hasn't gone smoothly, whether that's from the booth to the field or whatever. Have there been changes made to put things in place so that the operation runs smoother, whether it's are we going for a final play or not? Are we calling timeout? Should we challenge this thing? Is that operation, do you feel comfortable where it's at right now?
I do, and uh, time management, clock management, those things have been a big part of my career since I was a high school coach. So one of the first things that Thomas and I talked about was how to streamline that and to make it smoother. So we've talked about that. We went through the process of trying how we're going to simulate that in the game and trying to get that to where it's not an issue. Trying to be a play ahead. I think that's part of the issue is we haven't been ahead of the game where we've been a little bit late, and that's part of it. That's a hard thing. It's easy on the couch. It's like I watch games this weekend, and I'm like, oh yeah, I would do this or do that, and then my wife is like, it's not that easy, and she's right. She's almost always right. So at the end of the day, we're going to work on trying to be better at that. Because it's extremely important, especially all the close games that we've had.
Is it a greater challenge when you're doing so for a rookie quarterback? Like certain situations, maybe like last week, a more veteran quarterback, you may be able to trust, say, he can handle that situation. He'll bang the timeout if he can't get it set. Versus, let's just help him from the start.
Without a doubt, I think sometimes you take those things for granted. When you work with Matthew Stafford or Justin Herbert, they've been through those situations where Caleb's going through a lot of these for the first time, and it's our job to make it easier for him. So we're going to try to do better at that and be better at communicating all those things in the process. But obviously, a veteran, and Caleb said it. I heard his press conference talking about all these things are beneficial for him, because he's going to learn from them in the future. Let's just hope that we learn this week and we don't have any more super hard ways to learn them.
Chris, how much have you worked with Caleb? What's been your role with him over the last 6-7 months?
Yeah, so at first my role was kind of the one to, I jumped on Caleb a couple times during, because it was like, hey, we need to get these things right within you and us seeing things the same way, and that was a learning process, all of us trying to learn each other and how we work together. And then as we've gotten to know each other, and I've known Caleb for a long time through recruiting and things like that, you kind of see how people work and how people learn best. We're going to be demanding on him, and that's part of it. And that's the way it should be. We're going to make sure that he does things the right way, and that's part of it, and that's the way it should be. So at the end of the day, I want to make sure that this passing game part of it looks the way I want it to look and the way we want it to look. And he's been great about it. He wants to learn too. He doesn't have all the answers, and he knows that.
Were you trying to recruit him to Maryland, or when would that?
When I was at Maryland.
Okay.
And he was right down the street.
No go?
No.
Why was your sales pitch not convincing enough? And
I wasn't.
Now, okay, hey, years later, now you got it.
Yeah, I wasn't the lead recruiter, so I'm going to blame Azar on that. But at the end of the day, I mean, he had so many options. It's hard, and it's hard to get a guy to say, hey, I want to stay 5 minutes away when I can go see all these places that I've never been. And the game's changed. Danny and I were just talking about the money and things like that. Like, I'm glad I'm not in it anymore.
But what's the coaching structure around Caleb now? Now that, Shane's out of here, Matt's out of here, Thomas is in the head job. What is the structure of who's working with Caleb when?
Yeah, so Kerry is the lead. He's the one that does the practical work of it. Thomas is in there, and Thomas is making sure, and Thomas is demanding. Him and I got a lot of the same personality traits as far as we want things to look a certain way, and that shows up, in the way that he coaches and the way he's been working with Caleb. And I think Caleb's kind of taken to that. So he's got the overarching theme of every day. And then mine is just come in and sprinkle, hey, this is what I see. This is how we see it, so that he sees it the way we see it. And so we're all on the same page as far as, hey, we're going to take this angle at this way, or we're going to take this route a little bit flatter, or whatever those adjustments may be. Or maybe I see the coverage is a little bit different, so I'll interject in those things. But really, it's Kerry and Thomas doing most of the heavy lifting with him.
Who's supposed to be, or who do you anticipate being the primary for him on this sideline? Looking at the tablet, showing him, like, who's that?
That's been Kerry the last 3 weeks, and I would imagine it will still be. I think Thomas will make his points, but he also is the head coach now, too. So he's got to make sure that things are going right on both sides of the ball and special teams, too. So.
Chris, over the last week, what have you seen from Thomas that just kind of demonstrates who he is as a leader?
That's a difficult question for me. I've known Thomas since I was at Wisconsin. We worked together. I had actually was part of Thomas getting a job at Wisconsin. So I've known him for a long time, and he's the exact same person since the first time I met him. So the stuff that you guys see for the first time, I've seen that for a long time. I mean, I think he's a leader. and those things demonstrate themselves. The more responsibility you get, the more they demonstrate that you should have that responsibility. So for me, it's kind of hard to answer that because, like I said, I see the same person that I've seen for the last 12 years.
So you could see those leadership qualities in
Yeah.
Wisconsin?
Yeah, those aren't hard to see.
It sounds like you guys kind of have a pretty good grasp of what you wanted to implement really quickly here to kind of improve some of these things, especially when it comes to the game management, the clock management. I guess, how did those conversations go? Did it like start right away over the weekend? And did you guys quickly come together with that plan?
Yeah, so when Thomas took over as the OC, and like when our previous relationship, I had clock management at several of the colleges I was at, including when we were together at Wisconsin. So I would advise Coach Anderson back then, like, hey, think about this, do this. So he kind of knew that was kind of one of my things. And then we've had discussions previous to those issues that we had that, hey, we need to clean these things up. So all those things that came up before he became in charge, and when he became in charge, it was easy for us to say, hey, we need to clean these parts of our organization up and be able to be in a position to where we don't have those same things happen to us.
As you kind of go through these transitions during the season, what sort of complications arise from having to do this while prepping for the 49ers, while getting your team aligned now that you've gone through two separate kind of transitions with Shane leaving and then with Matt leaving?
Yeah. Well, first, I mean, it's extremely hard for those because you work with those guys and you have relationships with them. So this is all hard for all of us. With all due respect to those guys, because they're great coaches and great people. So that part makes it hard. The football part is really where you kind of get away from the human part of it. So at the end of the day, we've tried to just make sure that we make the main thing, and not worry about the fluff. So we're not going to sit back and worry about things looking this way or that way for anybody else. We want to make sure that we get all the nuts and bolts right and get the football part right. And then the rest of it will kind of take care of itself. But we want to get the football part of it right.
What, if anything, has changed for your room, Coach, with the receivers as you have elevated? What changes about your room?
Not much. Keenan's really the coach. I'm joking, but not really.
Right.
Because Keenan,
You think you're joking, or
does he think I'm joking?
yeah, does he think you're joking, or does he think he's?
Keenan could be a coach. Keenan's the smartest player I've ever seen. He's the smartest football person, not just player. Like, he sees stuff, like, as a coach, I sit back and I say, hey, that was 3 week. And then Keenan says, no, it was 2 sky. And I sit back and say, well, I better go check. When everybody else comes to the side and they say, hey, coach, it was 2 sky. And I know it was 3 week. I don't need to go check. So he sees stuff different than the rest of us. He's a play ahead, just like a coach would be. So what he has done over the last 3 weeks since the initial change was he's been kind of my conduit for those guys. So he runs a meeting in between while they're doing the special teams. He gets all the offensive skill in there and does a meeting. He knows how I want it to look. And so those guys, they've been joking that he's saying my sayings, which I'm good with that. I mean, if he's saying my stuff, then that means he respects what I'm doing. So, but that being said, he's taken a little bit bigger of a leadership role because he's really not as outgoing as you guys think he is. But he's been a little bit more.
We don't think he is. Just so you know.
Will you handle their complaints differently now that you have a more elevated view? I mean, you have been that guy to come to, coach, I'm not getting the ball, coach, I was over here. Now as you look at the whole thing as a whole, you're like, is it?
They know I don't play that. So at the end of the day, they're not. If they complain, then we're both kind of looking at it like, I've known DJ so long that I can sit back. His mannerisms, I know exactly what he's thinking. So I'm like, yo, nip it, or hey, come and I'll give you a hug. Those things, that's part of coaching too. And that's part, like, DJ's family to me. So is Keenan, and Dre, those guys I've had in the past. And then the guys we have now, they're becoming that way too. So at the end of the day, they know not to complain to me in a certain way. And I don't play that, at the end of the day.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hey, This week, San Francisco 49ers offense, at first glance, you see all of the signatures of a Kyle Shanahan-led offense. Really, really intent on running the football. When they are at their best, they're averaging 30 rushing attempts per game. They complement that with the play action and boot. Um, they utilize screens to slow down your rush. And obviously, Kittle is a primary target. I mean, he can be a matchup issue depending on what you're doing. So we have to do a really good job of making sure that we have him, we are aware of where he is at all times, and we execute and we stop him from gaining explosive plays. Debo Samuel, very versatile player. He can align in multiple positions. He can play tailback. He can be a slot receiver. He can be a wide receiver. He is the key to everything that they desire to do. Very versatile player, strong, possession guy, can also get behind you, a runner once he possesses the football. So we have to be aware of that and make sure that we understand how they're utilizing him and that we do a good job of managing his personnel packages. But at the end of the day, it's about what we need to do as a defense. And we're looking forward to putting forth our best effort, starting with making sure that we attack and control the line of scrimmage and that we do everything we can to keep this quarterback in the pocket. He's done a really, really good job of scrambling. Just another person that you have to contend with in that regard. When we get him in a situation where it's 3rd and 7, 8 plus, we cannot allow him to gain a fresh set of downs by running all over the football field. So be a great challenge for us. We'll put forth our best effort, and we'll do everything we can to gain a victory. I'll take your questions.
Coach, I know you've been a part of the game planning throughout the season, but now taking over duties as play caller, aside from actually calling the plays, what has that changed about either your week or your game day?
It doesn't change a lot. I'm responsible for the entire plan. And previously, there was a lot of collaboration between myself and the rest of the staff, and that will remain true. We have an excellent staff, and we pull from all of our perspectives and knowledge and experiences. But at the end of the day, I've got final responsibility with every single thing that we do.
Was there any point this year where you called plays defensively, even if just for a brief stretch, if Matt had something else that he was occupied with?
I called the plays during the preseason.
Only then?
Yes.
What did you learn about your stint as a play caller in Carolina? Was it 2018? Was that the year? And I know it was a long time ago, and you probably have gained a lot of experience since. But what can you lean on from that experience?
Sure. Yeah. Well, and just looking back at that, and your first time having an opportunity to function in that role, there's no easy part of calling the game, but the gotta have it situations, the 4th down plays, the calls that you need to make in the red zone are critical because those things can lead to points. So you have to make sure that you have a really decisive plan. You get the guys the best call that really accentuates what we can do and manages that situation and let them go play.
Thomas said on Monday that he's not a micromanager, that he's just gonna obviously let defense let you do your thing. But what have your interactions been like with him this week, just in terms of formulating that game plan?
Yeah, we've had a chance to just talk about how all 3 phases need to connect, and how all 3 phases need to support each other so we can attain and achieve our ultimate goal, and that's to win the football game. And we just have to make sure that we're all aware of what we're doing. Thomas has been extremely supportive and encouraging, and I appreciate that, and we'll take that and run with it.
Eric, obviously Thomas steps into the top job, but how much responsibility has there been for you and Chris and Richard to help stabilize things after a tumultuous week?
The best thing you can do is just make sure that the players that are under your charge are confident, that they understand and are connected to the larger message, and that starts with the head coach. It starts with Thomas, and make sure within our responsibilities we're following through with the details of his leadership and the details of his philosophy and vision.
Was there when you guys decided how you guys were going to go about philosophically, were they going to put defense in certain situations in terms of 4th down decisions on offense, whatever it may be? Was there a lot of alignment there, or did that take some discussion?
Yeah, you have to start. You can't assume anything, especially when the roles are increased or they're different roles. You have to talk through all of those scenarios and make sure that as much as possible we can anticipate what we need to do and how we need to function when those situations come up. Those fourth down situations, 2 minute, where you have to make where the players have to be ready to go and you have to make the right calls.
Coach, what are the principles of kind of your philosophy of a defense? I mean, obviously, I'm sure you've been instilling them with the players since you got here, but it's a little different situation now that you're calling the plays. I mean, what does an Eric Washington style defense look like when it's working at its most efficient level?
Well, it's going to be accentuated and it's going to be led by our players. It's going to be led by their awareness, their physicality, their speed, their violence, and just making sure that there's clarity. If it can't be any ambiguity on defense, and then go out and make the kind of plays and play with the assertiveness that we want to play with. And so I want to start with that. I also want to make sure that we know who we are. The number one reason that people fail is you don't know who you are. I want to make sure from the front to back, every single person in that room, including the coaches, we know exactly what our identity consists of. And that whatever we decide to do, it's in the best interest of the talent that we have on the football field.
Eric, there seemed to be a lot of pent-up frustration with players, even on defense, as things went south under Matt. Do you think, and the defensive numbers kind of at least coincided with that, in the last 4 weeks. Do you think the change could be good for this defense? That, if it's just your voice or whatever, or just that Matt's not here, do you think that with this change that could invigorate this defense and make it, get it back to where it was?
Yeah, well, what will get us going in the right mind frame and the right attitude is just going out and winning and not hurting ourselves, not doing some of the things that we've done to undermine our cause of winning. And I've been fortunate to be in the room with the players and to have had a voice, a very prominent voice with the guys, along with the assistant coaches. And we have to turn the page quickly. We've got an opponent that wants to win at home, and we've got to focus on that. Everything that's happened in the past, we have to learn from those situations, but we got to make sure that we're truly learning from it and we're utilizing that going forward.
In those meetings, do you get the impression there's a breath of fresh air with the change?
I get the impression that the guys are eager to go out and play. And from what I've been able to glean, they're in a good spot. And I don't mean to speak for them, I'm just talking about what I've observed. Our last two practices, especially the one that we just had, it was excellent. There was a lot of energy, there was a lot of smiling, and this isn't to compare and contrast where we are now as opposed to where we've been. I'm just telling you that I believe the guys are eager to go out and to prove that they can be a dominant defense from cover to cover.
It's important though. Is it better than what it was in the last few weeks?
Better will be determined by how we play. And that's the only thing that matters, and that's what we'll judge and evaluate are the results on Sunday. I'm not going to sit here and prematurely start talking about we need to be in the right mind frame with confidence. We need to make sure that we're connected, that guys are supporting each other. And from what I've seen so far, I like what I see.
Eric, you said one of the,
Understand that, you're locked in on the Niners and everything for this game, but how difficult is it to compartmentalize the job you have to do with also the personal side that, a guy who brought you on is no longer here and the uncertainty that goes for you all as coaches now moving forward?
There's no uncertainty with me. I mean, the only thing I'm promised is today. And that would be true had there not been a change. You do the best you can with today, and you get ready to do your absolute best tomorrow. And so that's kind of my mindset. I've been in this league for 17 years, and I've seen a lot of things that have happened, good, and some things that are really disappointing. But you've got to focus. You got to make sure you're where you are, and you do your absolute best with what you have today.
you said the number one reason people fail is they don't know who they are. Who are you guys then?
I just mentioned that we're going to be a group that's first of all there's going to be clarity, there's going to be speed, precision, details. There's going to be execution. We're going to understand the strengths of the guys that we have on defense, and we're going to make sure we put forth a plan that accentuates that and puts that forth. We have to be smart. We have to make sure that our assignments are clean. We got to do our jobs. And then we have to have a lot of fun together and make sure that the confidence is right and we're connected to every situation. That's what I want to see. That's what I intend to see. We've seen that at different points throughout the entire season, but we've got to make sure that there's consistency in a manner that will allow you to win the football game.
Good afternoon. How you all doing?
How are you, Coach?
I'm doing great. Go ahead.
Coach, I know it's no excuses and next man up, but when you have so many injuries from the first team, especially in the secondary and also on the offensive line, eventually that trickles down. I mean, we saw Eli. These are some of your key guys. Eli goes up and starts for a while. He goes down. Jonathan starts for a while. Jalen Jones just been out. Does that start to impact, kick coverage and kick protection too?
That's a good question, Herb. I say I've been proud of the guys for the most part and the guys that have stepped in. It's a great question because even last week, we lost a couple of running backs, and then CJ filled in. We had to take Homer off of some things because obviously we only had two backs, and then CJ filled in and went in and made a tackle right in Homer's spot at the 22-yard line. So it's always, like you said, next man up mentality. And obviously, you know how I am, no excuses on anything. So we want our guys to go out there and perform at the highest level and take advantage of every opportunity they have. So, yeah, that's the way I see it.
Richard, your room obviously has got a lot of young guys. It comes with special teams. What's been your message to them this week, just to, because it's been a lot going on the last few weeks. What's been your message to them to get them ready for San Francisco?
Yeah, same message as always. Play smart, sound, and relentless, and leave it all out there and play for one another. We have been talking, following Coach Brown's lead, obviously with unity and getting everything connected. So that's what we've been. That's been preached throughout. So it's been outstanding, and our guys are upbeat and they're ready to rock and roll like they always are.
What can you do beyond your actual job description to help kind of facilitate a smooth transition this week after the change from Matt to Thomas?
Yeah, I think I do what I have always done and do whatever is asked of me. And then always, I think that in any job, you go above and beyond to try to help the people that you work for. So that's what I've always done, and that's what I'm always going to do is, uh, is to help and, uh, and try to get my guys ready to play. The best thing I can do is have my guys ready to play. That helps everybody.
What will you take away from 2 years of working for Matt Eberflus?
Yeah, I mean, I'm appreciative of Coach. Coach brought me here for a second time. Obviously, you guys know my love for the city of Chicago, and I've been here more than once, so I'm appreciative to him and Ryan Poles for bringing me here. And I always take away the way he treated me, and he always treated me with respect and dignity, and I appreciate that from Coach.
Coach, the kicking game is obviously a very important part of all the decisions that get made on the other two sides of the ball. Have you had conversations with Coach Brown about, this philosophically and trying to get aligned about what you may want to do for the down, in the game, in the half situations?
Yeah, we have. We had those conversations, and those have been awesome. And the really good thing about Coach Brown and I is like when he got here, like we clicked immediately for some reason. I don't know why, but we just clicked, and we think alike, and it's been outstanding. Talking to him about those situations, and those really started the minute he took over as an offensive coordinator as well. We had some talks then as well about things we believed and things like that. But from day one, since he's got here, we kind of just, I don't know, we just kind of see eye to eye. So it's been cool, and I'm excited for his opportunity, obviously. And we all in full support and try to help him go get this dub.
Coach, we talked before about just how special teams coordinator are uniquely positioned on a football team to deal with every component of the team, offense, defense, no different levels of the depth chart. Were there some things that you may have needed to impart upon Coach Brown as he stepped into a role? He might not know some of the line. I'm joking, but he may not know some of the things in terms of defense and the personnel and all those types of things.
Yeah, I just think, TB has a really good feel for the team, and he was always involved with, special teams, and I was asking questions just because, like I said, we had a vibe from the beginning. So, yeah, it's just normal football talk, you know what I mean, which has been awesome. So, yep.
What makes Levi Stadium unique for kickers and punters?
Yeah, Levi Stadium is not the easiest place to kick, and obviously it's not the old candlestick, but there is some openings in certain areas there, and as you all know, I mean, spent time there, and it's just interesting because there are parallels and similarities to every team that you're with. So people talk about adversity and talk about kicking there. I might have had the most adversity in my coaching career when I was there. I think my first year as a coordinator in that stadium, you're talking about just learning to win. I mean, I believe we were 0-9 our very first year there. And we lost 5 games by 3 points or less. 0-5 in 3 games. I mean, in 5 games by 3 points or less. And I think we were 1-10 at one point. But you just keep fighting, you keep building, and we finished 5-0, and we won 2 games there by I think 2 points or more. And even in those losses, out of those 5 I was talking about, I think maybe 2 of those went to overtime. So it's just a part of the NFL and part of the process of just scratching, grinding, clawing. I don't expect our team here to do any different. And I mean, 2 years later, I think we were in the Super Bowl there. So I got good, fond memories of, um, Levi Stadium and being around that program. And all I'm trying to do is bring some of those experiences that I had here to these guys to help them be better players and help them fight through any adversity they may face. Because it's bigger than me. It ain't about me. It's about helping those men in the locker room become better players and better men.
It's a really broad question about Kyle Shanahan, but is there something that you pick out that you're like, this is what makes this guy really special as a coach?
I think it's his attention to detail. I think his attention to detail is second to none, and I think he gets that from his dad because I work for his dad as well. And Mike Shanahan might be one of the best football minds I ever been around in my life. We would be sitting in a room and he would rewind the tape, rewind the tape, rewind the tape, rewind the tape, rewind the tape. And for a little while we was like, what is he why does he keep rewinding it? Well, he's looking at all 22 people on the field and he's going to address all 22 people on the field in a staff meeting to try to get everybody on the same page. And that just blew me away as a coach when I was young. It just blew me away because he would take so much time on one play, but that's what his attention to detail it meant to him. And that's why, to me, he's one of the best to ever do it and probably should be in the hall soon.